into it if you
We
don't
can give
want
that to Katrina as well.
to. Sorry.
Okay, so
We should
Dave,
give that to Katrina as well because it's so little for Jubal.
Okay. All right. So Katrina, you're the serving person as well as Tubal, and the two of us who were here last week and did multiple roles will sit this one out, but we'll come on strong in the next scene.
Okay, and tell me who I am again.
Um, who are you, Sylvia?
I think I'm Solanio.
Okay, then you must be Salerno. Duncan. Okay.
Salarino. Okay.
I can
Uh,
assign roles, but to ask me to remember them is perhaps a bridge too far.
let me say a little something to video watchers, which is that we are continuing reading and discussion of the Merchant of Venice. And today we will start with Act 3, Scene 1. And the way we're probably going to proceed is we've divided up all the characters, the entire scene, and then we're going to go back and begin discussing the scene bit by bit. I'm not sure how big the scene is, but anyway, that's kind of the procedure. And with that, we can begin with Act 3, Scene 1, Venice, a street. Enter Solano and Solarino. And I'm Solarino. Now, what news on the Rialto?
Why? Yet it lives.
Okay.
Why? It lives there unchecked. That Antonio has a ship of rich lading wrecked on the narrow seas. The good ones, I think they call the place, a very dangerous, flat and fatal, where the carcasses of many tall ships lie buried. As I say, if my gossip report be as honest as a woman of her word.
I would she were as lying a gossip in that as ever napped ginger, and made her neighbors believe she wept for the death of a third husband. But it is true, without any slips of prolixity or crossing the plain highway of talk, that the good Antonio, the honest Antonio, oh, that I had a title good enough to keep his name company.
Come, the full stop.
Ah, what sayest thou? Why, the end is he has lost a ship.
I would it might prove the end of his losses.
Let me say amen betimes, lest the devil cross my prayer, for here he comes in the likeness of a Jew. Enter Shylock. Who's Shylock?
Me, but
You
you've
still have a
another
line
line.
there, buddy. You still have a line, Duncan.
I still have a line.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, how now, Shylock? Oh, you're right. Sorry. How now, Shylock? What news on the merchants?
You knew none none so well as you, of my daughter's flight.
That's certain. I, for my part, knew the tailor that made the wings she flew withal.
And Shylock, for his own part, knew the bird was fledged. And then it is the complexion of them all to leave the dam.
She is damned for it.
That's certain. If the devil may be her judge.
My own flesh and blood to rebel.
Out upon it, O carrion, the rebels it at these years.
I say my daughter is my flesh and blood.
There's more difference between thy flesh and hers than between a jet and ivory. More between your bloods than there be between red wine and reddish. But tell us, do you hear whether Antonio may have had loss at sea or not?
There I have another bad match, a bankrupt, a prodigal, who dares scarce show his head on the Rialto, a beggar that was used to come so smug upon the mart. Let him look to his bond. He was wont to call me usurer. Let him look to his bond. He was wont to lend money for a Christian courtesy. Let him look to his bond.
Why, I am sure, if he forfeit, thou wilt not take his flesh. What's that good for?
To bait fish withal. If it will feed nothing else, it will feed my revenge. He had disgraced me and hindered me 500,000, laughed at my losses, mocked at my gains, scorned my nation, thwarted my bargain, cooled my friends, heated mine enemies. And what's his reason? I am a Jew. Had not a Jew eyes? Had not a Jew hands, organs, dimensions, senses, affections, passions, fed with the same food, hurt with the same weapons, subject to the same diseases, healed by the same means, warmed and cooled by the same winter and summer as a Christian is? If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? And if you wrong us, shall we not want revenge? If we are like you in the rest, we will resemble you in that. If a Jew wrong a Christian, what is humility? Revenge. If a Christian wrong a Jew, what should his sufferance be by Christian example? Why, revenge. The villainy you teach me, I will execute, and it will go hard, but I will better the instruction.
Enter a servant. Gentlemen, my master Antonio is at his house and desires to speak with you both.
We've been up and down to seek him.
Enter Tubal.
Here comes another of the tribe. A third cannot be matched, unless the devil himself turn Jew. Exunt, knowing servant.
How now, Tubal? What news from Genoa? Hast thou found my daughter?
I often came where I did hear of her, but cannot find her.
Why, there. A diamond gone cost me 2,000 ducats in Frankfurt. The curse never fell upon our relation till now. I never felt it till now. 2,000 ducats in that, and other precious jewels. I would my daughter were dead at my foot, and the jewels in her ear would she wear here to my foot, and the ducats in her coffin. No news of them. Why so? And I know not what's spent in the search. Why does loss upon loss, the thief gone with so much and so much to find the thief, and no satisfaction, no revenge, nor ill luck stirring but what lights on my shoulders, no sighs but on my breathing, no tears but on my shedding.
Yes, other men have ill luck too. Antonio, as I heard in Genoa.
What? Ill luck? Ill luck?
Hath an argosy cast away, coming from Tripoli.
Oh, I thank God. Is it true?
I spoke with some of the sailors that escaped the wreck.
I thank thee, good Tubal. Good news. Ha ha, heard in Genoa.
Your daughter spent in Genoa, as I heard, in one of the night 80 ducats.
Thou sickest a dagger in me. I shall never see my gold again. 4 ducats at a sitting. 80 ducats.
And there came divers of Antonio's creditors in my company to Venice that swear he cannot choose but break.
I am very glad of it. I'll plague him. I'll torture him. I am glad of it.
One of them showed me a ring that he had of your daughter for a monkey. Sorry.
Out upon her, thou torturest me, Tubal. It was my turquoise. I had a bit lay when I was a bachelor. I would not have given it for a wilderness of monkeys.
But Antonio is certainly undone.
Nay, that's true. That's very true. Go, Tubal. Fee me an officer. Bespeak him a fortnight before. I will have the heart of him if he forfeit. For were he out of Venice, I can make what merchandise I will. Go, Tubal, and meet me at our synagogue. Go, good Tubal, at our synagogue, Tubal.
Exeunt.
So that's us, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the end of that scene. So we go back to the beginning of the scene. Okay. So we learn the rumor that Antonio's ship is wrecked.
Yes, and I should just add when I did a little synopsis of what we'd looked at last week, there was a scene, a fairly short scene, where that was foreshadowed, where a Frenchman yesterday told Solanio that that one of his ships looked like wrecked in the part, basically in the English Channel. To cut to the chase, basically one went in the English Channel, and it's the same scene. And so there's this constant mingling of what's happened to Shylock in terms of his daughter leaving, and the misfortune of Antonio. It's almost like there's this all intermeshing, because just before that, it's like that scene in Aeolus in Ulysses, where the boys are following Shylock around, having heard of his misfortune, and are teasing him. So there's this meshing of Shylock's misfortune and Antonio's misfortune, which sort of leads us into the scene we just read.
Mm-hmm.
Did you just notice what you did there, David?
Sorry.
You commingled. Or actually, you meant to say Bloom, but you said Shylock.
In the Aeolus chapter of Ulysses, Bloom, sorry,
Yeah.
I said Shylock. Bloom, if you recall, is teased by the newsboys. Like he kind of gets followed and chased around.
I recognized the action, and I went,
Yeah.
wait. That's
Okay,
Bloom.
yeah, sorry. Yeah, a little, right. Okay, a little character misappropriation there. Sorry. But yeah, that's what happens, and it parallels what happens here in this play. That both
It was just a Freudian slip, Dave.
it was a yes.
On the Friday, you mean?
Indeed. Him being of the Jewish persuasion as well.
Yes, that's what I was going to point out. Freud was part of the gang.
And Friday being the Sabbath, isn't it? The Jewish Sabbath, or am I mistaken?
No. It's actually Saturday. Well,
Saturday, I thought.
yeah,
Okay, Saturday.
but it starts Friday evening, if I'm not
Correct.
mistaken.
At sundown. That's right. Because there was that major league pitcher who was Jewish. He wouldn't pitch when the sun went down Friday night. That's a very old story. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, but anyway, so the rumor is that the ship. Did I just knock myself out? Oh, dirty dog. Hold on, let me get back to you all. You're here somewhere.
Jim, if I could take advantage of this break, my brother's Muslim, and so I just looked it up to confirm it. Friday's their day.
Okay. Oh, it is the Jewish day.
No, Muslim. It's Friday is the day of worship for the Muslims. Saturday is the Sabbath for the Jews, and then Sunday for Christians.
Okay, so we divided up the weekend evenly.
That we have among the three major Western faiths. Yes.
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay, so page 1, rumor of the wreck, which they take as the truth. And then there's this little joke about if my gossip report be an honest woman of her word. And then Solanio goes, I would she were as lying a gossip in that as ever napped ginger, whatever that means, or made her neighbor believe she wept for the death of a third husband. So there's a couple of jokes right there which I don't get. I know they're jokes. So can anybody explain those?
Did you dissect these last week?
We didn't. I don't recall. My note says nap ginger. It says ginger seems to have been associated with old women.
Oh.
And I guess with the third husband, I guess the thought is that by the time your third husband dies, you're probably pretty much inured to the death of husbands and aren't weeping.
Right. It's maybe it's even crocodile tears.
Yeah.
A woman was killed at the death of her third husband. Well, maybe an implication that maybe she's been offing the buggers. But we do know that these two, Salarino and Solanio, look with favor on Antonio, the good Antonio, the honest Antonio.
Yeah, but they're his friends. They're his mates.
Actually, that's a good question, Sylvia, because look at that last sentence. Oh, that I had a title good enough to keep his name company. Oh, I guess he's just saying, I wish my reputation was as good as Antonio's.
Mm.
Okay, to point out that we're only talking about, he has 3 ships out, right, Antonio?
Okay. Thanks for the reminder. I'd forgotten. And so we're hearing of bad things happening to 2 of them so far.
Oh, two.
Okay,
Yeah.
so one is in the English Channel, Sylvia, that we looked at last week. And then there's one in the Goodwins, wherever that is. And then are we looking later on to somebody say, oh yeah, something coming out of Tripoli? And they spoke with the sailors that escaped the rack.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm interpreting this correctly, he's down 3 out of 3.
Yeah, my notes here say the Goodwins is a sandbank in the English Channel.
Okay. Okay. So then maybe it's 2 out of 3.
Maybe 2 out of 3.
2 out of 3. Okay. Right. Thank you.
Well, if he's stuck on a sandbank, that's not good news either.
No.
Wrecked on the narrow seas, that could be the English Channel, of course, couldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Let me
The
see.
Goodwins. Yeah.
Well, look at Salarino says, ha! What sayest thou? Why the end is he has lost a ship, singular. And then Salarino says, I would it might prove the end of his losses.
Mm.
What is that implying that things come in threes?
Uh,
No, I don't know. I don't know.
I'm just being picky because in Salario says why the end is he has lost a ship. So, let's see. My goodness, why did Shakespeare do this? He put these two names so close to each other. It's so easy to confuse them. But anyway, the idea, there's been bad news. And the two guys are talking about poor Antonio, and then they see Shylock coming.
He comes in the likeness of a Jew, which is interesting.
That's the devil.
Yeah.
Lest the devil
sorry.
cross my prayer, for here he comes in the likeness of a Jew. So
Not Shylock, the devil.
Shylock is the devil in their minds.
Okay.
Let me say amen betimes, lest the devil cross my prayer, for here he comes in the likeness of a Jew.
So, when he's asking, he's saying that you knew none so well as you of my daughter's plight. And then there is Salario started teasing him or taunting him by saying that he knew the tailor made the wings she flew withal.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Right, and then Salarino goes, and Shylock, for his own part, knew the bird was fledged, meaning his daughter. And then it is the complexion of them all to leave the dam.
Again, my notes say it is the nature of fledglings to leave their mother.
Oh,
Oh, so in this case, the dam means the mother?
Yes.
And it gives Shakespeare the opportunity to do a bit of wordplay in the next line. Because,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah. She's down to it.
And then he does it a couple lines later because Shylock says, my own flesh and blood to rebel, meaning he's talking about his child, And
Uh-huh.
so Solanio says, out upon it, old carrion, which is a carcass, rebels it at these years. Takes him literally when he says, my own flesh and blood. I think.
Yeah, is that all there is in that one line? Out upon it, old carrion, rebels it at these years.
what's a carrion? Oh.
Well, I think
Well,
it literally
right.
is flesh, but my note says a common term of abuse.
Well, okay, and well, at least in modern usage, it's a rotten carcass.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Carrion. Yep.
And then Salarino continues to give to give Shylock a lot of grief. There is an implication in this line of Salarino's, where he says, "There is more difference between thy flesh and hers than between jet and ivory. More between your bloods than there is between red wine and Rhenish." So I want to concentrate on just those two lines just for a second, because this is actually a sign that at least these two guys, or at least this guy, is looking at Jewishness as a behavior and not as a genetic thing. There's more difference between thy flesh and hers than between jet and ivory, so black and white.
Mm-hmm.
So by Rebecca's fleeing with Lorenzo, she is proving that she's not really a Jew. I mean, I take that implication of this, and that at least in these guys' minds, or at least in Salarino's minds, Jewishness is a behavior, not a genetic thing.
You mean Jessica Duncan rather than Rebecca, don't you?
Oh, Jessica. Who's Rebecca?
You mentioned Rebecca, so I don't know who she is.
Okay. Yes, I mean Jessica. For some reason
That's okay.
I'm calling
That's
Jessica
okay.
Rebecca.
But
And there's probably no Rebecca in the whole freaking play.
I think she was in the audience. But Jessica is Shylock's daughter, so she must be a Jewess.
See, I'm actually arguing against that, though. I'm not
Yeah.
really making a totally dogmatic statement here,
Okay.
but I'm just taking Salarino's thing, where Salarino says there is more difference between thy flesh and hers than between jet and ivory.
Yeah.
And I'm making a tentative argument that, at least in Salarino's mind, this is a evidence that he does not consider Jewishness hereditary. He considers it behavior based.
Mm. I would suggest that he's simply taking Shylock's part against Jessica. I'm not sure that he's arguing it as you see it, but I could be wrong.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear what you're saying.
Like Jewishness is very clearly not just behavior, but a genetic thing. Jews, descend from each other genetically, I think.
But I think the most important thing about the Jewish religion, that it passes through the woman,
mother.
who
Through the
just
mother.
would be really important. And so
Yeah.
on.
Right.
I don't know. That strikes me about it.
Okay.
Wouldn't that suggest, Sylvia, that Jessica is definitely a Jew if it's passing through the female line?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me argue on my side here. And my argument on my side is that in all of the European countries that I know of, if a Jew became a Christian, that was the end of it. That they were no longer Jewish.
Yeah.
To the extent that they could live even in virulent anti-Semitic countries, such as Spain, England, et cetera, et cetera.
But I just think that Salario's just being abusive and insulting to Shylock. Does he?
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Okay.
Anybody else thinks?
Well, I mean, looky here. We have three different interpretations just in our little group here.
Hmm.
But I mean, then it changes. Well, okay. I'll make one more point, and then we move to the next part, which is the last sentence, where it says, "More between your bloods than there is between red wine and Rhenish."
Hmm. My notes are suggesting that Stellario is just taunting Shylock with these words.
Yeah, certainly could
Like
be.
he's not making a statement in support of him or anything. It's more winding him up.
I think that will be interesting to see as we go into the play what the attitude is towards Jessica
Yeah.
by the Christians. Now that she has left Shylock's house and she's married a Christian Lorenzo.
Hmm.
All right, anyway. But tell us, do you hear whether Antonio have had any loss at sea or not?
Um, Duncan, if you don't mind, I know you're moving on to something slightly different, but I want to pick up what you said
Okay.
because it's in Act Two, Scene 7, line 49. Jessica says, "I will make fast the doors and gild myself with some more ducats and be with you straight." And Graziano says, "Now by my hood, a gentle," which is, I think, a play on the word Gentile. Sorry, I'll read that again. "Now by my hood, a gentle and no Jew."
A Gentile and no Jew. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Playing on the word there. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah,
What line is that, Dave?
it maybe adds to that argument that you're making.
What line is it, Dave?
Yeah, good, Jim. It is Act 2, Scene 7,
Mhm.
line 51 in my edition. So
Okay.
I could be out a line or two compared to, because you've got the Al Pacino edition, correct? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So did you find it, Jim?
No, I didn't, Dave. Yeah.
2 7, and
Act
it's
2, yeah, Act 2, Scene 7.
line 51.
No,
Now by my hood, a gentle and no Jew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that fits my argument that they're basically looking at Jewishness as behavior based.
but Jim, in mine, it's Act 2, Scene 6.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, yeah. And mine too, yeah.
It's Graziano.
And in fact, it is in mine too. I'm sorry. I was the way it's sort of laid out at the top of the page has confused me. You're absolutely right, Sylvia. You're right on. Thank you. I am not only challenged in terms of misidentifying characters, but it looks like I'm directionally challenged here a little bit too. You are absolutely correct. Act
Only
two.
for the moment. Only for the moment.
Yes, okay. Act 2, Scene 6, line 51. Do you have it now, Jim?
Yes, I do, Dave. Thank you.
Yes. Sorry.
That's Graziano.
I'm going to get voted off the island here pretty quickly, I think.
And by my hood. What was that one? A gentle and no Jew.
Gentile.
Gentle, this, it's,
Well, it says here in my notes, a gentle, a noble woman, and also a Gentile or non-Jew. There is a pun on Gentile. In Shakespeare time, the two words were not completely distinguished in spelling.
yeah.
No, my text says
Okay.
Gentile.
That's it. Gentle, yeah, gentle, Donica. Did
No,
you say?
Gentile is what I have.
Oh, yeah.
By my hood, a Gentile with a capital G and no Jew.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
And by my hood, I mean, is that what I think it is? That he's uncircumcised? Would that be? Is that
Oh,
stretch?
That's an interesting interpretation.
What?
I said that's an interesting interpretation.
I don't know. That struck me.
Indeed.
My
What else?
notes, my notes say by my hood an expletive objurgation, which may have originally been employed by hooded monks or friars.
Oh my God.
That's more acceptable to me.
Oh dear God.
Well, I mean, if we want to get really creative here, we could say that maybe that's how the monks came up with their hooded robe.
Mhm.
Forgive me, I'm too influenced by James Joyce.
Well, so am I in that last chapter. Anyway, scrub that. Edit that.
No, that will not be scrubbed. That's too delightful.
Yeah, we'll be returning to that.
So, Duncan, just to also pick up on a point that you said in terms of if Jews converted, they seem to be accepted. I went, and perhaps this is an exception that proves the rule, but I did a quick look at the Nuremberg laws. I just did a quick, that the Nazis brought in.
Well, the
Yeah.
Nazis are a whole different deal.
Correct. That may be it. It may be, as I said, it may be the exception that proves the rule. But they started with the rule of thumb was one Jewish grandparent. But they faced a lot of pressure to be a bit more. I don't think nuanced is the word you want, but they found the world was a bit more complex than that, and so they came in with these laws. I just Googled it, and boy, very unpleasant because you
Oh,
could
yeah,
be a
yeah,
full
yeah.
Jew or you could be a Mischling, which was a mixed blood.
Yeah.
And
Well, it actually, if we get into the history, we have, first of all, we have the Spanish, which had incredible numbers of gradations.
right,
Okay, and then we have American culture,
right.
which had incredible gradations of, I mean, you kind of like the Nazis. If your grandfather was a little black, then you were black. You were legally classified as a black. And
And with some, the miscegenation laws were like one drop of black blood made you black
yeah,
officially.
this is that whole contamination thing because
Right,
where it became biological.
right.
That was I think the big change. And don't forget, it wasn't that many years before that we had what was it, Galton, who basically started the eugenics thing
Okay.
to give scientific credence to this folk thing that had been going on in the Americas and in Spain.
Right. So this is, I mean, we don't want to get too bogged down in this wormhole, but it is an interesting thing because when we think of Jews, we think of religion and race, whereas when we think of Catholics, we're thinking religion.
Yeah, and I'd be interested. I bet there are some very interesting history books that go into this topic, but I can't name any offhand.
Yeah.
But at least, for the moment, we can leave it as a question or as a topic.
Now, this is neither here nor there. It's a bit of a rabbit hole, but I remember once reading that the ancestors of Jews that had converted to Christianity often dream with uh, sim- often dream, and in the dreams there's often symbols of Jewishness in the dreams,
Interesting.
even though they might not be aware of their ancestry.
And where did you hear this, Mr. Sullivan?
I regret to say, Mr. Eccleston, I cannot quote my source.
Okay. Okay.
Taking the fifth,
So
Jim.
therefore, I probably can't put it in my essay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a bit like do androids dream of electric sheep?
Say again?
I said it's a bit like do androids dream of electric sheep? It's a novel written by Philip K. Dick, which eventually became a movie, Blade Runner.
Okay, okay.
That's totally, by the way, and right down a rabbit hole, which I don't expect to get back up.
Ah, all right. Anyway, the topics have been raised. I think we should proceed on to Shylock's speeches here, because this is the real meat of the whole scene here.
Hmm.
And again, this mingling, this meshing of Shylock's anger because of what his daughter's done and the misfortune of Antonio and the bond that Shylock has over him. And when Tubal comes in, you'll see that there are two lines to Jessica and then two lines to Antonio, then back to Jessica, then back to Antonio. But it has started already.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. That's interesting. I think it's very interesting, though, that Shylock starts off just talking about, well, I kind of screwed up loaning money to Antonio, that he was a bad bet.
Right. A bankrupt, a
Yeah.
prodigal.
Yeah, and he just has nothing to say, and then he kind of emotionally switches into what an incredible opportunity this is for him to wreak revenge.
Right.
And he almost seems delighted that
Mhm.
he made a bad deal.
Yeah.
There's a term for it.
I think the line that Salarino says, "Why, I am sure if he forfeit, thou wilt not take his flesh. What's that good for?"
Yeah.
Which is a very reasonable argument.
Mhm.
If we're just talking as a businessman, I mean, that's the business argument. You're just going to cause yourself trouble, you know. And then we get into this whole Shylock rant.
Yeah, and that's what it is. And it often gets taken as a plea for racial tolerance,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not. It's Shylock sharpening the knife and offering a justification for his revenge. Because he's basically saying, I'm just like the rest of you. And if somebody does something to you're going to want revenge. Well, I'm no different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if a Christian wrong a Jew, what should be his sufferance? Sorry, if a Jew wrong a Christian, what is his humility? Revenge. If a Christian wrong a Jew, what should his sufferance be by Christian example? Why, revenge. The villainy you teach me, I will execute, and it shall go hard, but I will better the instruction. If you wrong us, shall we not revenge? If we are like you in the rest, we will resemble you in that.
Um, I would say that the argument that being made here, though, yes, it is an argument of deep bitterness. But the argument is also, I'm going to do this because this is what you would do to me.
Yep.
Mm.
And that, for all of your so-called Christian virtues, I have not been treated.
Correct.
The last sentence, why revenge? The
Mhm.
villainy you teach me, I will execute. And that is the same thing that Dave just read, but it's worth repeating. And it shall go hard, but I will better the instruction.
Yeah, because he said, I learned all this from you Christians.
Well, he didn't. Let's put it this way: he didn't unlearn it from the Christian behavior anyway. Is what he's saying.
Villainy you teach me.
Mm-hmm.
That's
That's a little bit of a conceit, actually. If you've read the Old Testament, there's plenty of really revenge things going on and trickster things. It's phenomenal.
It's an eye for that. But Dave, you were suggesting that this can be played as a sort of more moral thing.
Well, when I took it in high school, I guess that was my context. It got pulled out as a plea for, that this was a speech, which was a plea for racial tolerance. And in fact, if you do pull some lines out and forget the context, it could be used as a powerful plea for racial tolerance. But like if you read it carefully, it's a justification for revenge. And I mean, Shakespeare knows what he's talking about here because revenge does eat at people, and you often, if you've been wronged by somebody, not only do you want to return the favor, but you want to return it with 10% interest, and that's what he says here. The villainy you teach me, I will execute, and it shall go hard, but I will better the instruction.
Mm.
And I mean, the desire for revenge is an awful soul destroying thing.
Mm.
Right. And I will say, and this is more sociological than anything else, that of course, if a minority takes revenge in this way, it is not a good thing.
for the minority.
No, it's not. It's not good for anybody.
It's not good for
And as well,
anybody, particularly bad for the minority.
you have the old saying, revenge is a dish best tasted cold.
Right. Right. It's Jim. Yeah, thanks for raising that because it is a very sort of complicated emotion. And I
Mm.
suppose we've all felt it in some ways when somebody slighted us at a small level. But you hear stories of people whose children have been killed forgiving the murderer, which I don't think I would be capable of. But in some
Yeah.
cases, they say we had to, like we need to get on with our lives. This was just eating us with detrimental effects to our personal lives, to our marriages, and so forth. And so they had to do the forgiveness piece for the
Mm.
as much for their own self preservation as any sense of altruism.
Mm.
Right.
But
That is
There's a program on the television the other night called the Ireland's Unidentified Bodies. And there was one of them, a guy from Limerick. I didn't know him, but he lived not far from me. And he went to Holland, experimented with drugs, had some kind of cardiac episode. And so when he came, he wasn't the same person. And he wound up, I think, taking his own life, and his body was missing for years. But in actual fact, his body was recovered, I think, from the sea. And it was in a mortuary as an unidentified body. And the parents had went to the police and supplied their DNA and so on and so forth. And the body wound up being buried in an unmarked grave. But it was years afterwards when someone realized the mistake, the body was exhumed, DNA was done, and it took 25 years anyway before the body was actually identified to the family as this is your son. But the mother was interviewed, and I was absolutely astonished with how she was saying how, look, yes, this is a terrible thing that happened, but I can only just trust in God. And there was a lot of blame to the police, like for not, following up on it properly, because it looked as if with a little bit more thorough investigation, the body could have been identified many years previously. But amazed at how forgiving she was, saying just have to trust in God. And
Right.
Just going
that,
back to Sheila.
that is the Christian message. That is the good news right there.
oh yeah, yeah.
Going back to Shylock, he's arguing that there's absolutely no difference between Christians and Jews, that they're all humans. And he's basing this argument on the fact that their needs are animal needs. In other words, they bleed, what else? They die, etc. So he rounds that argument off by saying, well, look, if Christians take revenge on me, which is just another, if you like, animal need or a human need, well, the same thing will happen the other way around. So it has very little, I think, to do with religion, more sort of human needs, which he describes as animal needs.
I have to push back, though. I don't think revenge is an animal need. I don't think animals revenge.
Okay.
And animals are very practical. I mean, if a lion comes around and attacks the herd and drags down a member of the herd does not organize to go back and kill the lion. They
No, but it depends on what animal you're talking about. Chimpanzees do seek revenge on groups when they go into groups. I saw it in a documentary one night.
on other chimpanzees, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
The
chimpanzees.
famous movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, and the introductory part of that,
Mhm.
you see that the chimps discovering clubs that they can attack their opponents with, and vice versa. So I think you're right, Jim, that it does depend on the animal.
Oh yeah, it does.
Do we accept that, prehistoric man was human or animal or both?
I suppose it depends on how far back the timeline you go.
Precisely.
Yeah. Right, where the punctuation comes in.
That's right.
But just as a blanket statement, and I know it's a very hard thing to accept, but the Christian doctrine was, if you seek revenge, you cannot be a Christian and seek revenge.
Yeah. Turn the other cheek.
Right. Right.
Well, figure out something,
Hmm.
that can move things into a kinder direction. And of course, that's extremely difficult for us to practice, largely because we have no examples. I mean, but that, as far as I know, that was the message, and that was why the New Testament was supposedly the new gospel, the new way.
Because the Old Testament talked about an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, whereas Jesus was teaching turn the other cheek,
Right,
which was the great gift of charity.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the New Testament, that's pretty consistent. In the
Yeah.
Old Testament, there are actually passages very similar to that. There are parts of the Old Testament which are incredibly beautiful and humane. But by God, there's a lot in the Old Testament which is trickery, revenge, genocide. It's just unbelievable what a mess things were.
Revenge is mine, saith the Lord.
Right.
Hmm.
But that's more New Testament than Old.
I just want to come back to something you said about 5 minutes ago, Donna, in perhaps a different context than we've been looking at it. So when I've not thought about this till you pointed it out, but this business of I'm like you is very physical, isn't it? I'm like you because, if I get cold, if you prick me, I bleed and so forth. He
Yep.
doesn't say, how would you feel if you raised and loved a child and that child took off on you and took all your money? There's none of that sort of the high, you love that child and then she took off. It's brought down to a very basic and animalistic level, and I never thought about that until you pointed.
Yeah, that is what when Donna mentioned it, I also went and looked at those lines.
Mhm.
Yeah, because Shylock is really just one step away from denying his daughter, denying justice,
Right.
even though he does acknowledge that she's his own flesh and blood. But the sin is so grievous because it's money that I don't think he's prepared to forgive it.
Right. There is a line in King Lear which would be appropriate here. I think it goes something like, "How sharper than a serpent's tooth is an ungrateful child."
Mhm.
Very good, yeah. Excellent.
Yes, it is there. There is something. May you never experience it, but there is something uniquely horrible about the thought that one has given birth to one's own nemesis.
Right. Right. Yeah.
It's pretty ferocious.
And I mean, just generally speaking, families are complicated, Duncan, to your point, and this is undoubtedly why Shakespeare finds such such richness in exploring family dynamics, as we saw in Hamlet, the play that we just did. That scene where he takes on his mother, in his mother's chambers, is very, very emotional.
Right.
She's given birth to him, and
I was doing a little bit of reading on the Greek tragedies,
right.
particularly the early ones with Aeschylus. And one of the things that one of the bones that I was thrown that I'm gnawing on is the idea that Aeschylus is demonstrating that the family is the basis of all politics.
Mm.
That all that stuff with Aeschylus, Clytemnestra, et cetera, that this is the family as basis for politics.
Interesting.
Yeah. There's a guy, I don't know if you're interested in such things, but there is a professor that it's a 25 class series on the Greek tragedies. It's pretty interesting. I only watched the first 3 or 4 so far, but I remember that struck me. And of course, in a sense, that's what James Joyce is doing, particularly in Finnegan's Wake.
And the thing about families, just to expand that, and it definitely applies here. We're not going down a wormhole, but I'm sure it was one of my professors who said it, because I wouldn't have thought of it on my own. If you're dealing with you got about 2 to 2.5 hours of a play. Shakespeare's Hamlet's an exception. It's 3.5 hours, but you got about 2.5 hours to do your thing, to make it work. And if you go with families, you don't have to do a lot of explaining. You don't have to take the time to explain family dynamics, because people come with sort of preconceived notions and certain general concepts or assumptions about the family, and you can get right down to dealing with the nitty-gritty of the play. And like I said, I'm sure it was a prof who told me that, but that makes a lot of sense.
Mhm. And it's something that everybody has in common.
Right. And,
Yes.
if you don't have children of your own, because there are some couples that don't, well, you were children of somebody.
Yeah. Family, yeah.
Exactly right. And so there are certain assumptions that can be made about family things. And so you can get down, you can move on from that and explore other things in the play or expand upon them, as is happening here.
And you could say that, Duncan, the reverse of what you said, politics is based on the family. Is that what you said? Or the family is based on politics?
The politics is based on the family.
Yeah.
Was the original statement that I made, that in the plays of Aeschylus, I mean, he is using family members, or the family dynamics, basically to explain politics. And as a matter of fact, a lot of it is anger and revenge. And in the the Orestes, that the Orestes is the attempt to wrestle law away from revenge and anger, and bring it into, and to codify it into law, in order to give a basis for not spending all to give a basis for people not spending all their time trying to revenge on somebody else.
Right. So you're saying that revenge, yeah, because that applies here. Revenge is taken out of the hands of the family or the individual, and it's taken on by the larger society.
Taken on by the larger society to try to move things
Right.
forward
with less bloodshed and tragedy.
You don't have the blood feuds.
And I think the Christian argument is similar, although they don't. It isn't really necessarily said within the Bible himself. But the idea of turning the other cheek, for example, or leaving it to God, is that if we get angry and seek revenge, we are adding to the confusion and the tragedy.
Right, and it's actually, when you think about it, it's actually worked quite well, because you will often hear people complain about court's decisions, but they will almost always abide by them. Like, you don't hear many people who are acquitted of murder, and then the family of the murdered goes out and shoots him or her.
Yeah, and I will have to admit, there are certain cases I'm absolutely amazed that people don't actually.
Yeah, no, it's good. Yep.
I think I'm a little bit of a primitive. Fortunately, I'm not in any position of great power. But when they had that whole thing happen during the 2008, where it was discovered that there are all these rascals, these financial rascals, destroyed people's lives by the tens of thousands, and that middle managers in large corporations destroyed workers' pension plans. They literally robbed the pension plans to give themselves bonuses, and got the judges to declare the pension plans obsolete because they couldn't be enforced. And I'm going, damn,
Yeah.
I'm a peaceful guy,
Right.
but I'm not sure if someone were to come along and rob me of 25 years of hard work setting up a
Yeah.
a pension plan. I'm not sure that I wouldn't go get a gun and go hunting for somebody.
Or if you met the guy on the street and you had a baseball bat in your hand, you might want to kind of touch him up a bit.
Yeah, and I actually almost ran into an experience like that because there's a thing of there's a whole group of people who prey on elderly people.
Correct.
And there was a guy in my mother's neighborhood that was preying on her and
Right.
coming and getting her to write all kinds of checks to
Right.
give him money and all that kind of stuff. And I got so infuriated. This is a little bit shameful of me, but I'll say it. I got so infuriated that I went and got a length of pipe,
Right.
and I was seriously considering braining the guy.
Right.
Of course, it would have been horrible if I did. But
But the emotion is very understandable.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
emotion
yeah.
is very understandable.
Very understandable.
Right. Which
Particularly when, the person being preyed upon is your mother or close relative.
Yeah.
And, it's the vulnerable being preyed upon again. And we're having a lot of it here, I think, not just in Ireland, but probably across the world, with people preying on vulnerable people through investment in cryptocurrency.
Oh, yeah.
We're finding that millions and millions have been siphoned off people's accounts. And even the stories going so far as old ladies going to the banks to get loans to pay these guys, because they've been hoodwinked. So yeah, the length of pipe, I think, is a handy thing to keep close to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's a good point, and it brings us right back to this play. We can understand what is fueling Shylock here.
Mm.
He's got some grievances, and it looks like he's going to have It looks like, to use your metaphor, he's going to have the pipe.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
gonna have the pipe and he's gonna have the head in front of the pipe. And
Right.
you know, we're gonna get into that in just a second. God,
Yeah,
where is
sure.
it?
Because when somebody says not his buddy, one Salerno or Solano says to him, "Well, what good's the flesh to you?" You know, really in a practical way. No, I could use it for fish bait. You know, like basically,
I know
he wants the
that
flesh.
that's
Wants
down
to-
and dirty. That is really down and dirty.
It is. It is. Yeah, I'll use it for fish bait, but
This is a guy who's thought his way through this. So.
Do you know, I've only just seen that now. But you know, and you know the way Joyce has these things that he plays with or drops something, you know, the ball or something, and you know, and we followed it in one of the chapters. But he makes two references to flesh, and then he's talking about, you know, the bond, you know, it does that sort of thing.
twice he tells him twice, Sylvia, let him look to his bond, and then then let him look to his bond.
Yeah.
Oh wait, wrong. 3 times. Let him look to his bond 3 times in 3 lines.
Mm. Yeah.
And then when Tubal comes in, I don't know if you're wanting to move on or not, but it doesn't
We
get any
we
better.
move on a little bit anyway.
It doesn't get any better when Tubal comes in. And remember, Tubal is the guy who kind of fronted him for the money to loan Antonio.
All
So
right.
he identifies Tubal as one of his tribe, I think he says, and Tubal's the guy who gave him the money to lend Antonio because Shylock didn't have enough
That's
in
right.
his bank account.
Okay, good memory there. Thank you. I didn't remember that at all.
Me either.
No. Dave,
Okay,
we couldn't do without you.
Stop my obsessions here with details, Sylvia.
yeah,
Well,
that's
big-
good. Okay, here comes
Ah.
another of the star. The third cannot be matched unless the devil himself turn Jew. Okay, so that actually being reminded of who Tubal is actually really has a major effect on the last part of this scene. And I think I'm just going to throw a thing out there. The interesting thing about Tubal is that Tubal is a businessman.
He is, because here's the line. I cannot. This is Act 1, Scene 3. Shylock saying, "I cannot instantly raise up the gross of a full 3,000 ducats. What of that? Tubal, a wealthy Hebrew of my tribe, will furnish me." And so Tubal comes in and just starts stirring him up even more to revenge.
Oh, you think so? Where is that? Where is
Okay,
that?
so that's on the interchange. He goes, okay, so basically he sent Tubal out to try. Shylock has sent Tubal out to find out if there's any news of his daughter. What news from Genoa?
Yeah.
And then you get this thing where Tubal starts intermixing what's happening, Antonio's bad luck, with what's happening to Shylock's daughter.
Okay.
And so it just seems to be egging him on. He's going, okay, I can't find your daughter, but she's spending a whole bunch of money. Oh yeah, and by the way, Shylock lost a ship, and then your daughter traded a ring for a monkey, right? And it happened to be a ring that Shylock's wife seemed to have given him when Shylock was a bachelor. And then Tubal comes in again, and Shylock said, "I would not have given the ring for a wilderness of monkeys." And Tubal comes in again and goes, "But Antonio is certainly undone." I mean, it's like a bellows where he's fanning the fire.
Huh. Okay. That's a different interpretation than I would put on it.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough.
because Tubal at no point, Tubal is relating, quote, facts. And at no point, of course, the effect may be, as you say, to stir up Shylock even more. But Tubal himself is not suggesting revenge. He's reporting.
Right. Okay.
So I just have to keep an eye on Tubal if there's more of Tubal later on.
Okay. All right. I see your point.
Mhm.
Well, the point I started off to make was and I could be very, very wrong. This is a contrast between Shylock and Tubal. That Shylock is a businessman, but he's very emotional. And Tubal is a businessman, but he's not so emotional. He just deals with the facts on the ground.
Yeah, because he hasn't lost his daughter.
Well, that may be the crucial difference also. But anybody the idea of a true business person is that they just take what the situation is and they move it forward as best they can. And that the ideal of the true business person is they would never take revenge. That revenge is just useless. They may try to block someone from cheating them. Maybe I'm making too much of this.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I think you're really pushing it too far there.
Okay.
But here's the thing. So Tubal says, your daughter spent in Genoa, as I heard, one night 80 ducats. Shylock says, I'll sticks a dagger in me. I shall never see my gold again. 80 ducats at a sitting, 80 ducats. And instead of Tubal saying, yeah, it's really too bad, it's almost a non sequitur. He says, there came divers of Antonio's creditors in my company to Venice that swear he cannot choose but break. Like, where's this coming from?
I know, and then he makes it even worse, saying that she sold the ring for a monkey. I mean,
Right.
I think you'd want to slit your throat at this time.
I think so. I'm thinking, Sylvia, that if I were encountering a personal misfortune, I would rather talk to you than to Tubal. Because I think you might show me some sympathy, whereas Tubal just keeps sticking the knife in.
Well, remember, Tubal has a dog in this fight, though. Tubal's not going to gain anything. Okay, I'm just throwing this out there.
Right.
If Shylock takes his pound of flesh, that does Tubal absolutely no good at all.
No, it's true. It is. That's quite right.
Zero.
I know. But I think Shakespeare here has really built it, built it up. You just imagine the anger and the emotion, and it's just this fat on the fire, it's just getting worse and worse. Shylock must be ready to explode by the time this is finished.
Well, and you know what? And here it is, Sylvia. Okay, so then and they're going to make further plans, but where are they going to go to connive and plan further? To the synagogue.
Yeah.
Meet me at our synagogue. Go, good Tubal, at our synagogue, Tubal. Well,
Yeah.
it's. I mean, I think we would all find that slightly, if not very offensive today, but it seemed to wash, I guess, for Shakespeare's audience.
Huh. Yeah.
Okay, Romeo certainly undone. Nay, that's true. That's very true. Go Tubal, fee me an officer. Bespeak him a fourth night before. I will have the heart of it, if he forfeit. For worry out of Venice, I can make what merchandise I will. Yeah.
Hmm.
But I will give that the Tubal is not saying, "Hey, Shylock, to carve the heart out of Antonio is not going to do us any good." And
Yeah,
how
that's
are you going to pay me back?
right.
Remember,
That's
you borrowed money from me to give to Antonio. How are you going to pay me back? If you
No, that's such a good point. Like he's not saying, okay, let's. I mean, things are not going well here, but maybe we can get 10 cents on the dollar, right? That's not what they're talking about.
that is exactly where a true business person would go, though.
Correct.
Well, this really sucks, but okay, what can we save out of this mess? And I don't want a bleeding heart.
No.
Thank you, Shiloh. No.
In fact, I'm thinking this through. It might be in Tubal's interest to try to talk Shylock out of this because a live Antonio could maybe generate some wealth that would pay off the debt.
Right. Well, it'll be interesting to keep an eye out, and Shakespeare may not even take up this theme. But since I'm being outrageous today, I'll be even more outrageous. Perhaps this is Tubal's way of. No, I am being outrageous. But if I were Shakespeare and writing this play, I would have Tubal, trying to talk Shylock out of the tree, so to speak, by providing Shylock with information and sympathy, and waiting for an opportunity to say, Shylock, cutting the heart out of Antonio is not going to do us any good. It's
Well,
going to.
they might talk about that when they have their meeting. But I'm just saying there are people, and I've come across them. Maybe I've done it as well. When you say something, which is making a situation worse, then they just go on and make it even worse. I've seen that happen.
Yeah, it's called shitstorm.
Mm-hmm.
We got
I
a
don't-
whole nation doing that right now.
But sometimes without malice as well. They just have no
Right.
cause.
Right.
Hey,
Yeah,
but you-
they don't know how to handle the situation, and so they're just, as they say, running their programs.
No, definitely. So, but Tubal doesn't have any cop on whatsoever.
Well, we will be continuing next Friday, and we will see if Tubal does anything besides what he's done today. And anyway, I thank you all very much, and I
Thank you.
particularly
Thank
thank
you.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
being
This is
kind
great.
enough to listen to my wild
Oh,
conjecturing.
no, don't ever
Good.
change, Duncan.
That's all good.
Yeah.
See you next
Food
week.
for thought.
See you next week then.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye,
right.
everybody.
All right, here we go.